Hey guys, this is Ray, owner of Double R Diesel. Welcome back to my channel and my shop. Hope you guys have had a wonderful week. I have been blessed, and I hope you guys have been blessed as well. And I hope this coming week is going to be great for you as well. Picking back up where we left off last week. In last week's video, I mentioned that I talked with a shop owner that had been raided by the EPA that week. He's in trouble for possibly selling defeat devices and deleting diesel trucks. It's the same old story. It's just proof positive that things have not changed, that even though there is a new EPA director, there is a new attorney general, there is a new president, nothing has changed with regards to enforcement of the Clean Air Act and diesel emissions, and even gasoline emission standards for that matter. I know there's a lot of talk in Washington. I know there's some things that's possibly going to be coming down legislative wise, but regardless, the bottom line is nothing is on the books that's going to ever make deleting legal, at least right now, and probably never. I hate to admit it, but it's probably never going to happen as much as I want it to. So that's reality. Life is tough sometimes, and you have to roll with the punches, and that's what we're going to do. But the bottom line is, don't believe everything that you've heard by these other YouTubers. I appreciate the comments that you guys have made and being level-headed about it. A lot of the talk initially was from YouTubers who were just trying to say what people wanted to hear so they could get clicks and make money off their YouTube channels. That's what it was all about. And unfortunately, a lot of us got baited into that, and we fell for it because that's what we did want to hear. But the bottom line there is, don't put your trust and faith in man. I don't care who's sitting in the White House. I don't care who's sitting in Congress, who's sitting in the Senate, who's sitting in the Supreme Court. You'll be disappointed sooner or later. I can promise you that. Nothing good is coming out of Washington, D.C. for us American people at the real family, small business, consumer level, because I've talked to a lot of people in the past week. I'll just go on a quick rant. Ask guys, I said, look, are you any better off than what you were 6-8 months ago? And including myself, nope. And the answer is no. Stuff still costs too much to purchase at the grocery store, the parts counter. Vehicles are still too expensive. Interest rates are still high. Everyday cost is still high. The regulations that we're under are still in place. All this stuff was being talked about, when Donald Trump was elected, that, how things were going to change and it would happen quickly. It ain't happening. It ain't happened yet. I don't see it happening quickly either. So we're in this thing for the long haul, and my thoughts and prayers is with each and every one, because it's difficult times for a lot of us. What else? Let's talk about some comments. So, going into the comments from last week's video, a lot of you guys didn't realize that there were armed agents that work for the EPA. So the EPA has an environmental, I forgot what the term is for it, but they've basically got an environmental crimes division where basically they've got their little team of guys and gals that are armed, who are trained to use weapons, who are there to go in and, basically raid businesses and individuals, places, to look for violations of the Clean Air Act, and to basically treat you like a common criminal, because that's just the way they see it. It is a shame. I've had some people talk about here in the comments how, marijuana can be legal, but yet deleting your truck is not. Going back to marijuana is actually still a federally controlled substance, and it is illegal, but states have legalized it, and the federal government is not enforcing their laws that are on the books about it. So, you can make an argument about that, positive and negative. I know people got all kinds of opinions on that. But the bottom line is the government will pick and choose what they want to enforce. They've done it from day one, and they're going to keep right on doing it. And there's not much we can do or say about it, unfortunately. What else we got in here in the comments? Most of the comments were dealing with what I talked about last week in the EPA enforcement. And, unfortunately, when it comes to small businesses, that's who they're going to pick on, because that's who can't fight back. People like myself. They know we're not going to lawyer up. They know that we're, are going to just, deal with whatever's handed to us, and they're taking advantage of it. And unfortunately, it's not going to change. So as far as you guys who are the consumer end of it, you're having to source what you want from other places, and you're probably not getting the best quality of products, but you're going to keep on doing what you're doing, and I understand, and I don't blame you. Now, let's change subjects a little bit. So let's talk about who I am, what I can do, and what I can't do, in case you're just, tuning into the channel and you're starting to understand who I am. So I've been tuning vehicles for, oh my goodness, long time now. I mean, I started dabbling with high performance when I was in my early 20s, and I'm 51 now. And, gasoline experience was self-taught. Diesel experience was self-taught. My dad had a logging business that had tractor trailers and tractors and heavy equipment, and it was all pretty much diesel powered. And I learned everything there was from Detroit diesels, the old Detroits, two-stroke basically style engine Detroits, all the way from Caterpillars to Cummins, all the way from mechanical to the new common rail electronically controlled stuff. So I've had a quite extensive background of experience. I've kind of come in at a good time. I've seen transition from old school to new school, you might would say. So I've got a lot of things under my belt. I've always loved high performance work. I've always loved the sight and sound of an engine doing its thing. I've always liked the sound of a diesel engine with a turbo whine. I love the sound of an inline 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine doing its thing, whether it's a Cummins, a Caterpillar, a Detroit, a Packer, whatever, that's out there. You know what's out there. I love it. And that's how I got into this. So, I just started getting online, following along forums. When electronic programming came out, I got me a programmer. I got tuning software. I learned to dabble with it and self-taught myself as far as everything I know when it comes to diesel tuning. Never went to school for any of it. As far as the gasoline stuff, I have been to some schooling for particularly the Ford Coyote platform, but a lot of what I've learned there is through trial and error and experience as well. But I've been doing tuning for a long time. What do I offer you guys now that I can sell you? Well, that is emissions compliant tuning. So what is emissions compliant tuning? Well, that is tuning your truck for more power, improved throttle response, some cases better economy. It just depends on the situation. Improved transmission tuning where I can tune it, and longer emission systems life. So more specifically, quite oftentimes, the factory tuning is good, but when people add aftermarket intake setups, different tires and wheels, use the truck in different ways than maybe it wasn't originally intended to be used, that's where custom tuning really comes into play. You can play with certain maps that allow the truck to run more cleaner, not fill up the DPF as quick. You can tune the transmission to shift at different RPMs to provide a better performance for the application. Obviously, you can make more power. The beauty of a diesel engine is, a common rail electronically controlled diesel engine is you can command more fuel through different means, and by getting more fuel in the engine, you can burn it and you can make more power. It's real easy to pick up 100 to 150 more horsepower over stock and still keep all the emission systems intact. Like they're going back again, if you tune it to run more efficiently, you don't load up the DPF as quick. Specifically a common problem that I see that I address quite often is with the newer trucks, particularly the 19 and newer trucks. A lot of guys put on S&B intakes or Banks intakes, talking about the cold air intakes with the air filter assembly, not the intake horns, but those kind of things. And they kind of skew with the airflow over the mass airflow sensor and the map sensor. And when you start messing around with that kind of thing, you can throw off the air fuel ratio. And when you throw off the air fuel ratio, then you can make the truck run rich. Quite oftentimes is the case. And when it's running rich, it's producing more particulate, more soot. Even though you don't see it, it's being captured by the DPF, and that's why you get those more frequent regeneration cycles and you have issues with that. And I've learned through experience what you can do to correct that given certain situations and make the truck run more efficiently. What you can't do is the obvious, and that's I can't offer any kind of tuning that disables EGR flow, that disables the DEF injector or the DEF fluid being injected in. I can't do anything that allows you to remove any of those components, including the DPF. I can't stop regeneration cycles altogether because you have to keep the DPF in place. So basically, what the EPA says, any element of design that was originally in place by the factory to keep emissions in a certain standard, you are not allowed, us as tuners, to manipulate those elements of design in any form or fashion. So basically, that just puts EGR, SCR, DPF, all that stuff off limits from being modified in the tuning. So that's what I can't do. So if you want to know what I can do, basically anything beyond that, that's what I can do. There's some fine lines there that the EPA, particularly under carb standards, that you can be beaten up upon. What you can do for any state other than carb certified states is different than carb states. I won't get into all that, but the bottom line is I can do pretty much anything except render emission systems inoperative when it comes to emissions compliance tuning. And by tuning your truck with emissions compliant tuning, it makes the truck more fun to drive, makes it more efficient. In some cases, you can get better fuel economy, not always a guarantee, but you can also improve longevity, reliability for your engine as well as your transmission through emissions compliance tuning, believe it or not, even keeping the emission systems intact. So guys, even though you can't remove it, there's still benefits to tuning your truck. Now, one of the biggest thing I hate about not being able to delete a diesel for me, it might sound silly to you guys, but I don't like a quiet truck. I like it to make noise. And unfortunately, with all the stock stuff in place, they don't make any noise. They're really, really quiet. And I'm sure a lot of you guys like that, but for me, I like noise. And that's the one thing I miss about an unrestricted diesel is the noise. But, to each their own. But yeah, that's a plug for Double R Diesel, what we can and can do now. And like I said, guys, it's worth checking out. Keep in mind, if your truck is a 2022 or through a 2024, if you want it tuned, we do have to swap the ECMs in the truck. So you have to find you a donor ECM that was made for a 19 through 21 model to swap in order for us to be able to tune it. Is it worth it? yeah, some of my customers would tell you that it's definitely worth it. You know, that's entirely up to you. That is an added expense. You know, a good used ECM out of a 19 through 21 model truck might run you a minimum of $1,000. In some cases, they're more. A new ECM, the correct part number, and I can get you the correct part number. Just email me and I'll let you know what that is. But a new ECM for a 19 through 21 model can be over $3,000, so it can be quite costly, just, you know, for the whole process. But it can be worth it. You know, I'll just say this, and although I may not supposed to say this, but you know, you get tuned by me, and you get your truck set up with a tuner. You know, down the road, if you decided it needs to go on a diet plan, although I can't do it, you probably could find somebody to use that same device and provide you the kind of tuning that you would need at a later date for that. You know, you might have to source it from another country, but it is what it is there. But I'm just trying to make a case to, you know, why it would be beneficial for you to, you know, consider purchasing a tuner and tuning from me and letting us tune your truck. Now, you know, if you got a pre-emissions truck, you know, a 5.9 truck, common rail truck from 2007 back to 2003, you know, there's no worries about emissions there. We tune them, you know, night and day, makes a big difference. There's a lot that you can do there, just like with the 6.7 trucks. Also, let me make a mention of this here. Make a mention of this. I know there's not that many of them, but we do tune competition trucks. So what do I mean by competition trucks? Well, there's drag race, there's sled pulls, there's a lot of different things. And it doesn't matter what that truck competition vehicle is based upon. You know, we can tune a 6.7 CM 2350, 2450 style setup for deletion if it is a true competition vehicle. So what am I saying? If you can provide me proof that you're building a sled pull truck or a drag race truck, and this was like a 08 or newer truck that you're converting over, putting a roll cage in, racing tires, racing seats in to use in competition, you send me photographs, you send me documentation proving that that is a competition only vehicle and it never will be used on the road, man, I can provide you with a tuning setup that renders the emission systems inoperative because you're just strictly building a race vehicle. We can handle that as well. And speaking of competitions, I will make a mention that I don't know if you guys follow along or not with the competitions, but the Ultimate Call-Out Challenge was this past weekend in Indianapolis. And as always, guys, it seems that Cummins Power Truck always wins the competition. So, you know, that's why I'm kind of partial to Cummins. That inline 6-cylinder, when it comes to diesel power, it is hard to beat. I'm not saying there ain't some bad V8 Duramax and Power Strokes out there. There are. But it's just something about that inline 6-cylinder and the way they make power and torque and the simplicity of them makes them an awesome vehicle for competition. So, just for example, the guy that won the UCC this weekend, I think his name is Josh McCormack. And anyway, he's got a Cummins Power truck. You can look it up. And if I'm not mistaken, he put down over 3,100 horsepower on a chassis dyno. That is at the back tire. And if I'm not mistaken, over 3,000 foot-pounds of torque as well. That is insane. You know, it's I'm sure it was like a, you know, one and only run. You can't beat those engines that much for that long. I'm sure a lot of boost and a lot of nitrous oxide injected, but that is incredible for a 6.7 liter style engine to make that kind of power. That is insane. So pretty cool stuff. What else? Oh, an idea for an upcoming video. Guys, you know, with the cost of things going up, and, you know, everybody's just trying to figure out what's the best bang for their buck. I thought about, and I actually picked up this. Let me show you this. So, maybe you can see this. It's an intake tube and an air filter assembly that I bought off of eBay. This is a $52 cold air intake. Well, It's not really a cold air intake because it doesn't have an air box. Some people would say it's a hot air intake. But anyway, it's an aftermarket intake setup for a 6.7 truck. I thought about installing that on my 2018 truck and see if it'll pick up any extra power on the chassis dyno with the hood open and with the hood closed. That way, you know, all the guys out there could say, you know, the hot air under the hood would hurt you. Be interested to find out because, like I said, this little setup here I got on the floor is only $52. Now, you know, I sell them and they're quality pieces, but, you know, aftermarket intakes by the big name companies, I don't want to call anybody out right now and hurt myself or hurt them, but the big name intakes that are made by the big companies are expensive. You know, I sell them for $350, you know, or more in some cases. Can this little $52 intake setup perform just as well as they do? It's going to be interesting to find out. Be interesting to see how it sounds. You know, sometimes it gives you a little more turbo noise. So, for an upcoming video, I think I'm going to bolt this little thing on. You probably seen them. Might have one yourself. On my 2013 truck. Oh, I was thinking 2018. My 2013 truck with a G56, and put it on the chassis dyno, do a before and then after, and see if it makes any more power. And you know, try to be as honest about it as I can. It'd be really interesting to see if you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get some gains. So let me know your thoughts on that. As always, I appreciate your comments. Please make your comments, your suggestions. It's great topics for discussion. As always, I appreciate your support, guys. It means a lot. You know, it's a lonely and dark world out there now that been hit by the EPA, and I can't do any deleted stuff anymore. You know, all the guys in Canada are getting all the glory now because they can pretty much do what they want to do, and nobody here in the States can touch them. But I appreciate your guys' support as always, and like I said, keep the comments and suggestions coming. Guys, hope you have a great week once again. God bless you guys, and we will see you again soon.